on that. Someone else to do that. Probably the little Cairo, how many years ago was it? 70. And Tom Snyder asked her what it felt like to be exploited for her physical disabilities. The standard question that is asked in freaks, you know, the standard question that brought down Todd Browning's freaks. It's one of the greatest David Bowie lines, you know, when he says, like Todd Browning's freaks, y'all. Is it y'all? You know, or something. It's like. And Dolly's answer stuck with me. Because she essentially answered, this won't be word for word, this is what I remember and what I'm feeling. She said, well, Tom, you know, you're a broadcaster, you're more articulate than me. Why don't you answer how it feels to be exploited for your looks and your voice and who you are? Because it's the same thing with me. So while Dan Fisher was a schizophrenic, was very, very troubled, and I love his records, and I was certainly exploiting his schizophrenia. I was certainly enjoying his crazy, enjoying his suffering, and that always makes me feel a little bad, but you know, that maybe all show business is. I mean, I don't know if we were exploiting Wildman Fisher any less than we were exploiting Elvis. We'll miss you, Wildman Fisher. I always wanted to meet you. Audible.com is the leading provider of downloadable digital audiobooks and spoken word entertainment. Audible has over 75,000 titles to choose from to be downloaded to your iPod, MP3 player, and played back anywhere, anytime. Choose from books in every genre: science fiction, thrillers, drama, comedy, business, history, and more. Go to audiblepodcast.com/penpoint to get a free audiobook download of your choice when you sign up today. Again, go to audiblepodcast.com/penpoint for your free audiobook. What is your impression of the field modulator, Mr. Loach?
Well, I'm not much of an impressionist. I think it's sort of a, you know, it just kind of goes out like that. Let's start off by saying hi to Magic Corey, a longtime commentator on my reviews, who, in fact, conceived the original episode. You can see his name buried in the back of the credits, because apparently Trek producers placed those who come up with the ideas right alongside the guy who mixes the coffee. If you want some further info on the episode, perhaps we'll chime in. I have a feeling Matthew's words will get you farther than the thumb will ever go. Alright, so the episode begins with Dr. Crusher introducing us to Amanda Rogers, going to be interning aboard the Enterprise. Picard's so happy to see her, he pops all the buttons on his uniform. Then he passes her off to Riker, so she can provide some quick and dirty background info on herself. And she needs it because she's been having carried most of this episode. And we have no idea who the hell this is. This fact becomes especially relevant when a bunch of puppies appear out of nowhere and then get wished back into the corner. Seems things are a little odd in Mrs. Rogers' neighborhood. Who decides who lives and who dies? It's me. It's me. Back into nothing, Buttercup. So Amanda jumps straight into things with the important work of an intern, which if you've ever interned at anything, you know is craft work. So she tests out some tricorders on herself and then hauls them down to the shuttle bay so the Forge can then explain a secondary plot. See, they're on a relief mission to a planet that screwed itself up environmentally, and they talk about how it's important to have intense bureaucratic government regulations to avoid such problems. You know, since governments have such a great track record in making the right decisions. Anyway, we see Amanda make a sign to ward off evil just in time to save Riker from being flattened. And a lucky thing, too. It could have broken your spine and we'd had a completely different episode. Things get really bad as Geordi shows her engineering and a warp core breach happens. You're stuck magnet for bad luck today, Amanda. Somehow she's able to stop the breach and reverse it using, you probably figured it out from the title, the power of the Q. So I guess that means technically Picard should be unhappy with her for saving Riker and his ship. I think he's changed his mind a bit since season 1. Having the Borg stick a funnel in your mouth and dumping nanites in probably does that to a fella. At the briefing, and what else do you do after someone seals a warp core breach with their mind, Q shows up and explains that she's a Q, that her parents were Q, that assumed human form, and that a human child really is a Q. I know, I'm working on a flow chart to explain it. Q's here to train her to properly use her power so she doesn't accidentally blow up the galaxy. Of course, the real reason is that it's to decide whether Amanda should be allowed to live or die, whether she'll come to be the continuum as a Q or have to be eliminated. I'm a bit torn on this point. On the one hand, it's good to see Q back in the role as the agent of the continuum, rather than the random troublemaker some people seem to think he should be. On the other hand, it's a bit too callous for my liking. Q has been growing throughout the series and stopped seeing other life forms as insects. This feels like a big step backwards. I can see him executing a potential threat to the galaxy, certainly, but I can't see him acting this sinisterly about it. Picard may not like this, but he does see the point.
Very well. I will introduce you, but we cannot argue like this in front of her. We must at least appear to be pals. Civil.
I should probably add that Picard doesn't know about the whole executor part of the plan. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't go ahead and explain the situation to Amanda, or rather, stuttering at her while Hugh looks her over like Jimmy the overly touchy orderly. When he says he's going to take her away, she tosses him across the room, which gets Picard so excited he pops his shirt again. Despite the incident, Beverly convinces Amanda that, like it or not, working with Q is her best option. Step 1 is in helping her use her powers to recreate an image of her real parents. Step 2 is off the sick bay to start making some gin slings, because if you ever interned, you know the sweet, sweet allure of booze. Q shows up after Crusher leaves and plans to use the work as a chance to practice her Q powers some more, but it turns out Amanda forgot a step, annoying Dr. Crusher. Gee, I'm sorry the presence of an authentic alien being throwing her life into utter shambles has caused you a mild inconvenience. So Q does some more stuff, including a game of hide and seek, and along the way we discover Amanda kind of has a thing for Riker. When she's taken out for dinner later with Crusher and Troy, she spies Riker on a date with someone else. And Amanda soon demonstrates the Q impulse control problem by whisking herself and Riker off to a gazebo, with her in a lacy sort of thing and him dressed as Abe Lincoln. He objects at first, but all it takes is a little of that Q magic, and Riker immediately falls madly in love with her, getting ready to 4-7 her right there in front of the gazebo. As so often happens, once she knows she has a man's interest, the woman immediately dumps him and sends him on his way. Meanwhile, Data and Picard piece together what really happened. Q executes Amanda's parents via a tornado, and at this point, Q reveals his real purpose here was to decide whether or not she could live. Q apologists will have a hard time explaining that subtle smirk as he mulls over whether or not they'll execute her. Just compare that to the I was the one who got you into this scene that we'll get in All Good Things, and you'll see the stark difference. I can buy this from first season Q, but so far into his character arc, it's completely out of place. So we have an aside as Riker talks with Wheezy the Marlboro Man here. Then they get ready to head down to that nasty, unregulated planet. Meanwhile, Picard has filled in Amanda on what's going on, and she demands Q come to face her. When confronted on the topic of why he would kill her, Q makes a horrible mistake by appealing to superior morality. Uh-oh. You know what that means, don't you? Dear God, yes. It means Picard is going to stand up and give a long-winded speech. And I'll tell you another thing. I once went to Africa and saw a gazelle. When it's finally over, Q says they already decided to spare Amanda, but she has to make a choice. Never use her powers again, or come to join the Q. She elects not to use her powers, and goes for, maybe 2 minutes with that deal. You see, the reactor Riker and Geordi are at is going to explode, and they can't be beamed out. So Amanda uses her powers to stop it, wipe away all the pollution in the world in seconds. Much like if Al Gore had been sworn in as president. So Amanda chooses to rejoin the Q and says goodbye to all the regular cast. Dr. Crusher says that as a Q, she can come back whenever she wants. But of course she won't. She leaves, and Dr. Crusher looks pretty glum, probably because someone shows up and gets to be the star of an episode. And if she wants that, she has to wait until she's screwed by a Scottish ghost. Anyway, the episode